terms of some of the peaks on an hourly basis, but then to get real information, you need to drill down a little bit more. So I just took a day from July this year, the 3rd, and we looked at, I again went to coarse and fine. Sorry, my apologies, I mislabeled that. The pink line should be coarse, not PM10. And I looked at coarse and fine, and you can see that over the time of the day, from early in the morning, very early in the morning, to most of the day, you had northwest winds, and the concentrations are around, on an hourly basis, 20 to 40, or maybe a little bit more micrograms per cubic meter. But something happens. At night, somehow, there's a shift to northeast winds, and the PM10, or the coarse fraction, skyrockets. Why? Don't know. Thank you. I'm almost done. So, another area of research. But, again, we've got these data sets now, which makes things encouraging. Finally, briefly, the recent local research associated with CTAG, the Cold Terminal Action Group. Again, this is the website. It's concerned about PM emissions from coal trains. There are 2 pilot studies, and the second one is more detailed, and I'm going to show you an example from that. It's a response to an earlier study by the Australian Rail Track Corporation, which was considered flawed. New dimension in environmental concern and action. In all my years I've been in the Hunter and working on air pollution, never before have I seen a resident action group actually do their own measurements. And I think it's a really good step in the right direction. So the results add a new dimension. So I just took 2 examples. Thanks, Nick, for the data set. This is just an example on July 15th. And at the top is from their report, the measurements taken in terms of PM10, 2.5, and 1, and total particles as a loaded coal train passes. But again, I calculated coarse versus fine. And to me, the graph down at the right-hand corner, bottom, is pretty clear. The engine goes by, you've got diesel emissions and burning, so the PM10, 2.5, the fine particles peak. And then, as the train goes by, the fine particles diminish over time, and you can see reductions in the green line. And the coarse particle section overtakes that, so you have PM10 and then coarse particles affected with wagons as they go by, but not the PM2.5. And I said, aha, can we do that all the time? And the answer is no. It changes for each train, I guess. So here's another one, unloaded coal train a couple of hours later during the same day. And basically, it's very unclear. You have, at least in terms of engine versus what happens with the unloaded wagons. Yes, maybe the engine is at the front, where I've indicated it, in terms of the train passing by. But then the PM2.5 stays high. It does not reduce. So if the burning process is supposedly gone from the engine, why? Again, another very interesting area of potential research. So, what do I see in terms of summary in the future of all of this? The online data sets and the range of reports available to the public add a major new dimension to the air quality PM situation in Hunter Valley. Okay? With proper quality control and interpretation of the data, it's essential for accuracy and correct understanding. We will get some very good information. The Lower Hunter network hopefully will be completed in the next few years. It will be up and running as progress. A good addition to what's going on in the Upper Hunter. And I do recommend that the Upper Hunter monthly air quality reports also be funded, so we have monthly reports and interpretations for the Upper Hunter situation. These data and their interpretation should provide a much better overall understanding of the air quality situation for the Hunter Valley. And as I've said to many people, if I was a lot younger and started my career all over again, I would have a very, very exciting academic time. Thank you very much. thing I asked before, I'm hoping, as I said earlier, that this presentation will be available to all of you through the website. Because I didn't expect you to write down all the websites.
Thanks very much, Howard. Again, once again, a very comprehensive coverage of local issues. We take questions from the microphone, if there are. Please add to the glossary anything you want. And if you can leave the glossary documents on the table, we've only printed enough to leave on the table. They'll be on the website to download later. Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Howard. John Hayes here. Very interesting presentation. As you know, I was one of the ones carrying the wagons when some of that community scientific monitoring was being done, and it's exciting for us too. And I'm not an academic. One of the things that grabbed my attention was on the NPI, if I've got the initials right, the National Pollution Index. You explained that that was self-reporting. I get terribly, terribly nervous when people tell me about things that are self-reporting, because I know there are a lot of cheats in the world. I know there are a lot of lazy people in the world. I know there are a lot of people that like to keep things under the covers. So with self-reporting on the NPI, presumably it's then not audited, because how do you audit something that's self-reported? It seems to me that there is a possibility for some organisations and industries, or dare I say even government organisations, that they might not report at all, that they might only partly report, that they might report everything, which would be wonderful, or that they could be deceitful. Are all of those things possibility with self-reporting on the NPI?
Yes, you're right. I'm afraid, John, I'm slightly more trusting than you are. Okay. By law now, the major industries, mining companies, and whatever, must report their emissions estimates to the EPA as part of their overall contract or license. There is a form, quite a complicated form, and I've seen it, and I've seen them trying to use it, to estimate emissions from lots of different individual activities within the company or within the mine. So they will estimate emissions from the trucks that go along the coal roads, and they'll have to estimate the dust coming off the road itself as the wheels go by, from the diesel emissions from the truck itself, from the loading and unloading of the overburden or coal material from the truck itself. If they have a drag line, for example, they have to estimate emissions from the drag line. But there isn't a measurement. The estimates are based initially on US EPA, what we fondly call AP42, which is a major process in the US that was developed about 20-25 years ago, which gives guidance in terms of the way you calculate these concentrations or emissions, based on the activity itself. And slowly, and particularly with the New South Wales EPA emissions inventory, they have worked in the Australian conditions that deal with this process. So my advice in terms of looking at both of the NPIs and both of the emissions inventories is keep in the back of your mind that these are really estimates. They're not really based on measurements, but at least the estimates are comparable, so that you can get an idea of the different importance. As for sort of incomplete or lazy or anything like that, that's nothing I can testify to. I can only say that in my knowledge, and given the number of my former students in an environmental science program that are environmental officers now associated with the mines, I would be very, very disappointed with the training I gave them if they were not going to do it to their best of ability.
Howard, I have a couple of questions. First of all, we will put on the next NCCC agenda the extension of that report, so hopefully the EPA will go with that. We'll see. With relation to the extra lower 100 monitors that now the EPA are looking at installing, Do you think it's wise that they should also include particle characterisation, the ANSTO, like at the Stockton, to really understand, as well as the levels, just where the sources are?
Lovely idea, but now we come to a cost factor. Okay? If you put particle characterization, for example, with all the different Lower Hunter measurement sites, there are two things that are potentially a question about whether we really need to do that or not. One is the cost, because it's expensive actually to send samples to CSIRO or to ANSTO to actually get these done over and over and over and over again. Okay. The second factor is, would it really make a lot of difference in terms of getting your source characterizations if you had ANSTO sites at Newcastle, Wallsend and Huddersfield? I'm not so sure. Remember, those sites are set up to be sort of indication of regional overall air pollution and not specifically to identify industry per se. Okay? So I would think with a mix of what the atmosphere does with the fine particles, that I would guess that there, maybe with the exception of sea salt, because Newcastle is much closer to the ocean, there might not be a lot of difference in terms of the structure of the overall percentages we showed in the pie chart. So I wonder whether it's necessary. Now that we have Stockton being an ANSTO site, and we will have Mayfield on the other side of the harbour and industrial area also being an ANSTO site and doing the chemistry, I would think that would give us a pretty good overall picture of the sources and emissions structures in the Lower Hunter.
Although the Stockton site, once that then becomes the EPA site, may drop off the ANSTO site.
I don't know whether that's the plan or not.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing I had was with the NEPA standards, so you're saying they're very like for a regional area, but what do you say to the communities who have local monitors, like in their coalfields or in Stockton, etc., that have exceedances of NEPA, but that's not a regional site? So what do you say to them in relation to looking at their understanding of, is that an issue for them, etc.?
That's probably a question that I should ask you to ask Matt Riley tomorrow. Okay? It's a very, very good point. See what he says, because I don't have any, obviously as an academic and from another institution, don't have any other control over that. But it's a very, very important question. So I'll have to defer that.
Thanks.
Certainly don't mean to hog the question time. I'm happy to pass over if other people have got questions. James Whelan again. Thank you so much. A quick question and a slightly more complicated question, if I could. Quick question. Is it the case, you said to us when we presented that coal train signature study, and we were trying to differentiate what's 2.5, where do those particles come from, what's PM10, where does that come from? Am I right in remembering that you said that coal from the mechanical process of mining and transportation is most likely to reside in the 2.5 to 10?
The coarse fraction, sorry, the coarse fraction.
And less likely for us to find in the particles up to 2.5. So then, almost sort of, I'm thinking of Matthew and the story of the Herald. What do you make, Howard, of the story that you may have seen, and many of us did, in Saturday, a very major page 2, page 3 Newcastle Herald story that told us the good news, apparently, that most of PM 2.5 is not coal. Because to some of us that appeared to be stating a scientific fact, but the way that it was used was to say, stop looking at coal, look at wood smoke, everything's okay.
First of all, as soon as I saw that article, I looked at the headline and I read the article, and to me, the article or the headline is really quite separate from the article. The headline does not represent what the article says. I don't agree with the headline. I don't know, Matthew might comment if he wants to, but I've had an experience in the past where the reporter writes the article and then a sub-editor comes in who has nothing to do with the article and puts the headline in. So I would ignore the headline and read the article. And what the article to me says, and it's a pretty good summary of the report, which Mark will talk about tomorrow, is that we really do have to consider other sources of PM 2.5 and PM 10 besides just the mines. And wood smoke, particularly in the wintertime in the Upper Hunter and the villages, especially, but also in Newcastle, is a very, very important source of fine particles. So, but I'm going to, the details of that I'll leave to Mark. And as I said, I thought Matthew's article was very good, but the headline wasn't.